right out of the gate here, Kinds of Kindness is a film buffs movie. It will be a very hard pill to swallow for general audiences, and if you are under the age of 18 with a TikTok addiction, God help you, it will not hold your attention in the slightest. Now, with that being said, Kinds of Kindness is directed by Yorgos Lanthimos, and it stars Jesse Plemons, Emma Stone, and Willem Dafoe. And it's essentially a 3-hour-long movie split evenly into 3 different parts, seemingly depicting 3 separate stories. I think that's all the detail I'll go into the premise of this movie, because the trailer is already extremely vague by itself, and it does also advertise itself as being a pretty fun movie as well. Yeah, this is definitely a slow burn, but what I will give it credit for is because it does tell 3 separate stories, each of those stories have their own beginning, middle, and end, and each of those stories are told within the beginning, middle, and end of this movie. So you do get 3 separate conflicts and 3 separate resolutions as well throughout the runtime of this movie, which for a 3-hour movie helps it immensely in terms of pacing, because fuck me, a 3-hour movie sometimes can be a pain to sit through. Now, for such a long and slow movie, you would hope there is at least something on screen that is really worth looking at for such a long fucking time. And for me, that was the way the lighting was used in this movie. Whether that was the outside of a hospital car park with fluorescent lighting, or the corner office of a very tall building with floor-to-ceiling windows and the sun just beaming through them, just the way those shots were set up with the lighting so deliberately used made it look like something straight out of an oil painting. Now, you're not going to go watch this movie because it looks like a fucking oil painting, are you? And I'm glad to say it's got a lot more substance than that. Now, of the 3 main actors in this movie, I'd probably say Jesse Plemons did the best job for me, and he was definitely the most intriguing as well. There are a lot of moments throughout each of these stories in the movie where Jesse Plemons' character is truly tested, and he does a great job of showing how desperate his character really is and how persistent he is in getting what he wants. And I think having him paired up with Willem Dafoe and Emma Stone here was just genius casting, because each of their characters have such a clear-cut definition of who they are and what they want, and paired together, they just work extremely well. One of the really big positives of this movie is how much time it gives each of its actors to really grow into their roles. But that can also be seen as one of its downsides, because it does tend to drag on a little bit. Now, one of the really weird things about the marketing for this film is it is pushed as a comedy drama. Comedy first and then drama, but I think that could not be further from the truth. Now, you can put down your pitchforks and knives, because I'm not going to be come after by a bunch of film buffs just because I couldn't understand the intricacies of Yorgos Lanthimos' storytelling here. Now, I'm not saying I was going into this movie expecting some fucking slapstick comedy where someone falls down every 30 seconds or gets hit in the face with a fucking pie, but the way comedy is used here is a bit more situational and a lot more mature. Think a bit more like how cringe and funny it would be to watch someone beg for their old job back, or how a guy would go to some crazy lengths to get a girl at a bar. From my perspective, at least, this is definitely a drama first and then comedy. I can only really remember one part in the whole movie in the whole 3 hours where I actually laughed out loud. This movie was definitely a very interesting watch, and I did enjoy it for the most part, but if you're someone like me that hasn't actually delved into Yorgos Lanthimos' filmography, you're definitely going to be very shocked here to see the world through his perspective. Probably the biggest question I see myself facing after watching this film is, do I watch another movie by Yorgos Lanthimos? And I think the answer is yes, but I don't think I'll be watching Kinds of Kindness again. I think if you're tired of the constant slop and remakes that come out of Hollywood these days, then this movie is definitely a breath of fresh air.